Most of the time, it's this lateral where we find the hoof issues. Not today. Today it's on the medial. Welcome back to Nate the Hoof Guy. If we look real close along this white line, we see a whole bunch of little marks. One of those is going to be the issue. Now, in recent videos, we've had similar situations with marks in the white line that ended up being nothing. That is not the case today. We've got two trims, and we're going to find something at the bottom of both of them. It doesn't look like much, does it? But that is definitely our problem right there. After a few more swipes, it looks like that mark's about to fade, and then boom. See how there's moisture around there now? That's how we know we found it. Because I've got this location pinpointed and I know this block is not going to get in my way when trimming, I can put that on right now and let that glue cure while I'm working on this other claw. The wheel I'm using here is just to rasp this foot up, give it a little more texture so that glue has more to adhere to. She's going to do her best to screw up my block placement, but this isn't my first rodeo. Now we can move on to the knife work. Now you might be asking yourself, how does such a small mark cause a problem when some big marks don't cause any problems? That little mark is nothing more than an access point. So it can be small or it can be large, and if it gives access to that corium, then we can have problems. You can have a gigantic mark, but if it doesn't work its way all the way through, doesn't affect that corium layer, nothing's going to happen. It needs to get down into that corium. That's the area that becomes inflamed. That's where that problem happens. So if it doesn't get there, there is no problem. And if it's a little tiny mark, but does get there, well, you're going to have a big problem. If you look real close along that right-hand edge there, you see a little circle. That is where this problem originated, where that black line worked its way through the white line and affected that corium. The resulting separation here, that's what I'm removing now. That is from that little dot on the right-hand side. From here, you can get a little bit different view of that. And right in here is all brand new hoof horn. That's all real soft, new stuff. I don't want to mess around with that too much because it's ultra soft. I like to give an analogy where if you were to push on a really soft marshmallow, that's what that feels like. So ultra sensitive, ultra soft. I don't want to do any work around that. I just want to take away any of these hard edges here, and then we're going to get this foot wrapped up. Something like this is going to resolve really quite quickly. Because there's already brand new hoof horn all the way across that, really all we're dealing with here is just giving that hoof horn time to get thick enough to bear weight again. We'll get this foot down, and we're going to get her out, and then we'll move on. Now on to cow number 2, and that tiny little rock marks the spot. Now this tiny little rock didn't cause this problem, but it did find that void in the hoof, and that's where we're going to focus our attention once we get this all trimmed up. Now you'll notice with this hoof, it does have a little bit of rotation to it. You'll be able to tell that based on the way that I trim this sole. I'm really not going to take much off at all toward that outside wall on this claw, but I am going to take some more off on the outside wall of that other claw to balance that back out. This is what you see oftentimes with cows that have reverse corkscrew on the back feet. You're going to see a front foot similar to this. That is why we have this problem right here. Putting those pressures in places they don't or aren't supposed to be results in problems like this. So we're going to get this foot trimmed up. Once again, get a block on that, and then we're going to go to work and tackle this problem. As I mentioned earlier, the reason I'm putting these blocks on at the beginning of the trim versus at the end like I usually do is because I've got this problem located and I know that it's not going to be in the way of doing my knife work. So I can get it on now and allow that glue to cure while I'm working. Here I'm carefully working the hook of that knife up underneath that separated hoof horn. I'm often asked why I remove such a large area of sole around these particular problems. There's a couple reasons for that. Number one, I want to thin that hoof horn down so that the removal of the remaining detached hoof horn is easier. When it's thinner, it's more pliable, it's more flexible. I'm able to get the hook of my knife up underneath that hoof horn and remove it more safely. The other reason that I do that is I want to thin the margins down. What does that mean? That means I want the areas around that, I want that sole to be thinner and more flexible, more pliable, so that it doesn't cause any further irritation to this problem if it does move or come in contact with it. If it were thick with hard edges with no give to it, well then the give is going to come from the corium if they make contact together. Obviously we don't want that to happen, so I thin those margins down, give as much relief to that area as I possibly can. Once we do that, then we can get that area all flushed out, and then we know that we've got a nice bed or a nice area to promote healing later on. We don't have to worry about those hard edges causing problems, and we've got a nice thin layer there to regrow. We're going to get this hoof all wrapped up, and we're going to send her out and see how this foot is doing. Here you can really see that block doing its job. And with that, we are done. Thanks for watching, guys.